guys, how's it going? I thought I'd finally get around to reviewing my M135 since it's had its Motech Performance upgrades. I'm currently heading back from the Nurburgring, where I've had a really great couple of days. I only managed to get the car out for a few laps due to many accidents on the track and sketchy weather in the morning. Whoa, big moment. I should have done this video a long time ago, but I know a lot of you guys have already gone out there and had your cars Motec'd, if you like. Had the suspension done, spacers, and some of you got the power riser as well. So, and 100% of the people that have had it done have messaged me and just said how incredible their cars are. So the proof is in the pudding, if you like, and I'm really glad to sort of hear that, because yeah, then you know, it backs up my feelings about the work that's been done to the car. Now I am over the moon about this car now. I really love it, and in fact to the point that I was fairly close to trading this in for a 140 prior to having the Motec stuff done. Now I got that done all very last minute, just before the Petrolhead trip, or Petrolhead Tours trip that I did a few months ago. And since I've had that done, I've just felt no reason to upgrade this car. It's just, I've just really started to love it again. The M lights are great. They're always, you know, I love them, and they're always great up to a certain point. But beyond that point, I think they're like a 7 or 8 tenths car. Whereas now, this is like a 9 tenths car. M2, M3, M4, 10 tenths car, if you sort of put it in that range. So to me, it feels very close to my M2, which is a massive compliment. You know, it really is. I can't compliment it anymore. It's much more M2 than it is 1 Series now, whereas the M lights normally are a lot closer to the 1 Series than they are to the M2 in terms of handling dynamics, especially. I mean, if I put a diff on this thing, it would be an absolute animal. Sorry, I'm just concentrating only because pushing on a bit, but also the sun is 1 minute in my eyes, and then next minute I can't see where I'm going. But yeah, it's just lovely. Now, immediately I could feel the differences. You know, literally driving out of the industrial estate from Motec, I could feel that the car had a bigger footprint. And obviously, I think the very next day I was on the Eurotunnel over to mainland Europe, and I did a week with Petrolhead Tours, which was 2,500 miles flat out, like absolutely flat out. And I'll put a few clips of that driving in this video because it was just mega. So the car was literally thrown straight in the deep end. All the small changes have transformed this car, and that's always the case. I think with all decent cars, you know, when they've got a good baseline, if you like, it's very hard to massively improve that car. A bit like Alpina do. You know, Alpina don't sort of take a 3 Series and completely transform it. They just change certain things on it. Now, you know, what I've had done is very basic compared to what Alpina do, but the changes have really, honestly, just transformed the car. Now, so let's talk about from the front end backwards. Now, let's start with the brakes. Now, I'd cooked my original pads on a track day, so they seem to lose their bite. I think I literally baked the pad, and they were glazed over, so I never had that initial bite there. So I had the yellow stuff pads put in, and I'd heard mixed opinions from people about that. Motech were raving about them, but I'd also heard people going, oh, yellow stuff. Now, the original yellow stuff ones were a bit like that apparently. They were good for like hard track use, but they weren't good for like your everyday stuff. Whereas the newer compound that I have on this car, I mean, again, initially it was amazing, and after spending, you know, 2 hours pushing through sort of alpine roads, they were still amazing. I was going to get the braided lines done on this car, but unfortunately we didn't get time on that day that we had it at Motech, so it hasn't got braided hoses. And I must say, I haven't, I'm sure if I took it out on track there would definitely benefit this car and the brake system, but for the petrol head tour stuff, it was, you know, it was fairly long straights, and I wasn't abusing the brakes too much, and you can't really in the Alps, because if you're abusing the brakes, you're probably pushing it too hard, in terms of there's, you know, always dangerous drops either side, whatever else. So yeah, brakes are a massive improvement. Just changing the pads, brilliant. If you can afford it, get the braided lines done too, because obviously that's going to give you longevity on a track. The next thing we'll talk about is the actual suspension itself, or the springs. So Eibach make the original springs for the M lights, and the springs that Mike and Motech provide are made by Eibach, and they're made specifically for these M lights. You know, it's not some sort of Halfords, yeah, put them on and drop the car. What I had done to this was effective but subtle. In terms of aesthetics, I admit, and I'm not really like an aesthetic-y person, if that's a word, but I think the car looks so much better now. It's got a much better stance. I hate that word, but it has. So it looks better, for one, but also immediately, just, you know, the 20 or 25 mil of lowering just lowers the whole center of gravity of you know, the entire car. And 20 or 25 mil might not sound like a lot, but if an F1 team could lower the whole car by, you know, their car by 20-25 mil, you know, a back marker car would suddenly become a winning car. You know, it's just, it makes a huge difference to the way the car handles, makes a huge difference to the way it changes direction. And if you've ever been up close to a sort of GT3 spec car or something, you know, a real sort of track car, like a lot of the cars we've been seeing at the ring, the first thing you'll see is everything is on the floor. Like, the seats are on the floor, everything is down as low as possible, and that's because, yeah, lower center of gravity handling is much better. So springs changed that big time. Now the spacers I had put on at the same time, again subtle. I think I've got 10 mil at the front, 12 mil at the rear. That just gives the car a bigger footprint. Now the M2's got a much bigger footprint, so it's wider, both axles are wider, and in terms of, especially in terms of turning, the car just feels stable. But when you have them both done, the combination of both of them are like, even though they're subtle, you know, 20 mil lower, 10, 12 mil spaced, just those little changes suddenly turn this car into, you know, you literally sit in this thing, I can feel it now, and it's like, before it just felt, I know it sounds ridiculous, but honestly, I know these cars well, and I spend a lot of time behind the wheel, so immediately I sat in there, I was like, oh, it feels lower. First time I turned into a corner, I was like, wow, it just feels more sure-footed, which is exactly what you want in a car, of course. And in terms of its balance, it's brilliant. The other thing that I've been getting asked lots about, understandably, because it's kind of what I asked Mike about when I first looked at getting it done, is what does it do to the ride? Well, I honestly, hand on heart, I could swear that the ride's better in comfort, but I don't think it could possibly be. But it definitely hasn't got worse. You know, I'm in Sport Plus now, I put it into comfort, and the ride quality in this car, considering now how much sort of more ability this car has got, it's definitely, it's amazing that you can still whack it, you know, this car's got adaptive, you can still whack it into comfort and it's still got an amazing ride. So the ride quality, comfort has not changed or been destroyed or ruined at all, and that to me was another huge plus point. You know, you don't want to sacrifice, I didn't want to turn this into too much of a track weapon or sports car. I wanted it still to have that, you know, that sort of Jekyll and Hyde approach, and that's exactly what it's got. So super happy with its ride, super happy with the handling. I honestly can't tell you how transformed the handling's been. And some of the journeys on the Petrolhead tours, some of the machinery I was keeping up with, and trust me, it wasn't just good cars. There was, you know, good drivers in these cars, and this thing was hustling. Let's talk about the air filter and the Powerizer kit, the Remus Powerizer kit that I've got in this. So let's talk about the air filter first. Now again, those two, it was hard because I got them both done at the same time. I got the whole car done at the same time, but with those two it was hard to sort of tell what was doing what. But the air filter, it's a cheap upgrade, you know, it's not much, and it definitely allows the engine to breathe a bit better, or a bit easier. And it makes a much nicer sound. You can actually hear the induction sound with your window open especially. It sounds completely different when you jump in here, it really does. It sounds more like a traditional turbo car, you know, you can really hear the turbo spooling, and you can hear all sorts. It gives you more of a mechanical sound in the car, which is always a bonus for, you know, modern cars of today, where they're all a little bit, you know, everything's just like pinned down and shut up if they can. So that's awesome. Now the Powerizer kit's incredible. Now I'd read lots about it, and I know there's the JB4 as well, and I think they both do very similar gains, and they both do very similar jobs, and they're both very respected, especially with the M lights and stuff. So I was a bit skeptical about them, you know, a couple of years ago. Never felt the need, I never felt I wanted or needed more power. As I was getting the sort of everything else done to this car, I thought, okay, well now it can deal with more power. So I got the Powerizer put on. Itally I could feel the difference. It wasn't like night and day. I didn't suddenly get in the car and go, whoa, this thing's a rocket ship. I felt the handling, the handling was more of a change to me. The handling was completely noticeable, you know, first 2 seconds, whereas the Powerizer, it felt more mid-range and a bit more top end, but I wasn't convinced that it was as much as they were claiming. Wasn't until I was on the trip and I did a couple of drag races with stock M140i in auto, and I was pulling away from them, like pulling 5-6 car lengths on a nice long drag out of them. If I'm beating an auto 235 in a manual, you know, I know this car, and you can actually see between gear changes. As I was in gear, getting on boost, you could see me pulling car lengths. So Dan, who was in the 235, was just like, you could literally see your car when the power and the boost was hitting. You could see it pulling away. So that kind of convinced me. But also when I got back and Mike wanted to flash some new software in there, so went up to Motech, took it out, took the car for a drive without it in there. That's when I noticed how much extra power and torque the Powerizer was giving me. So it wasn't until I took that away and unplugged it, put it back to stock, that I was like, okay. Yeah, now I miss it. You know, the car almost felt like it was missing a turbo. It literally felt that like gutless. So yeah, so the Powerizer initially I didn't notice too much. I then begun to realise that it, you know, obviously was helping me when I was on Petrolhead tours, and then when I unplugged it, I was like, yes, that's helping a lot. But yeah, as a complete package, as I say, if you're tight on budget, and you know, which most of us are, and you can't spend close to 2 grand on all the upgrades, then I would advise strongly going for the spacers and the lowering springs, exactly as I did. I think it's 25 mil at the front, 20 mil at the back, so it keeps the same sort of slightly nose heavy stance. The spacers, 10 mil at the front, 12 mil at the back. That's what I'd go for first off, because you can always get one thing done, then the next thing. That's first off. But if you've got the money, get it all done. It's just, yeah, it's a peach, and I really love this car. And I now find excuses to just take it out for a drive. Like I had that meet the other week, and even though I'm getting a lot of lovely cars recently. You know, TRL's given me lots of lovely cars, and other people are, but I'm still excited about getting this car out, and I've now got a 7-hour journey ahead of me back to London, and most of it's pretty dull motorway stuff, to be fair, but I'm loving being in this car. You know, I'm not sitting here going, oh, this car's over 2 years old, I should get a new one. And people keep asking me about the 140s and stuff, and yes, I could get all of that done to the 140 as well, but at the moment I'm just loving this car. I'm really enjoying it. Cheers Mike and Patrick and Nick, of course, who installed all the stuff. Boys at Motech, you guys are legends. And yeah, long live the M lights. I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Please like, subscribe, and leave any comments below. I am going to put my sunglasses back on because that sun is slightly annoying me. I know I wear my glasses in a lot of videos, and a lot of you are like, get those glasses off or whatever, but I usually only have them on for a reason. Also, I'm getting old, so my eyes can't take the sunlight, unlike a lot of you guys, I'm sure. A lot younger than me, lucky people. Cool guys, I will see you at the next one. Cheers.